Hey everyone! Today I'm going to be showing you how to make this delicious coconut butter mochi. So here are the ingredients we're going to be needing to make the coconut butter mochi. The original recipe comes from Alana Kaiser on Honeysuckle's YouTube channel. I used their recipe except I modified a few ingredients and steps to my personal preferences. You will be needing 1 bag of glutinous rice flour. This is about 1 pound. And then half a cup of unsalted butter, 4 large eggs, some coconut flakes to sprinkle on top, 1 can of coconut milk. I like to use the cream, but the milk would be just fine. This can is about 14 fluid ounce, 1 teaspoon of coconut extract, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. I'm down to my very last bit. 2 cups of milk, half a teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and then you also need 2 cups of sugar. So the first thing that I like to do is take my coconut cream and heat it on the stove over medium heat. And then I take my butter and dice it and add it in. You just want to heat your coconut cream until it is warm enough to melt your butter. You do not want it to be boiling hot. And then add in about 1 teaspoon of coconut extract. Now you do not want your coconut milk to be boiling hot. You just want it to be warm enough to melt the butter. So just heat it up for about like 2 minutes. The reason why I do this is because later when I go and mix my glutinous rice flour with the wet ingredients, it clumps up. And I feel like if I just heat up my coconut milk just slightly, the warmth of this will help those clumps to dissolve so that it makes a nice fine mixture. So remember, just heat up for about 2 minutes until it is warm. Do not let your coconut cream boil. It will cook your eggs. You do not want that. The next thing I like to do that is completely optional is add in about 2 spoonfuls of my coconut syrup. Like I said, this step is completely optional, but I do this because I love coconut flavor and I want the flavor to be more potent. I will link below the recipe to my coconut syrup if you are interested. Next, we're going to mix together our dry ingredients. Take the glutinous rice flour and put it into your bowl. And then you're going to add the 2 cups of sugar. And then 2 teaspoons of baking powder. And then half a teaspoon of salt. And then slowly and carefully mix those dry ingredients together. And now we're going to make our wet ingredients. So crack your 4 eggs into a separate bowl. Add in 2 cups of milk. You can also just do coconut milk instead of regular milk, but I'm just going to use milk. And then your vanilla extract. Mix that together. And then you're going to pour this into your dry ingredients. And then carefully mix that together. Okay, I don't know if you can tell from the video, but there are little clumps in there. I'm trying to get my camera to focus. You can't really see it, but there's just like mini clumps in there. So that's why I like to just heat up my coconut milk just slightly. It helps it to dissolve. And then now we're going to carefully add in the coconut cream that we warmed up with the butter. And then carefully mix that together also. Now we're going to take a spatula and we're just going to mix it. So what I do this time is if I see clumps, then I'm going to take it and just slide it across the bowl to try to break up any clumps that I see left. I took one of my pans, this is about like 9.5 by 13 inch, and I sprayed cooking spray over it, and I put a piece of parchment paper on the bottom. And then just pour in your batter. One thing that I like to do is I like to carefully take it and tap it. This is going to help the little air bubbles come to the surface, and any chunks that you have left over will also come to the surface, so that way you can clear it out. I just take my spatula, just go around and like pop any little air bubbles that there are. And then any chunks that I have left in there, I just go in and scoop it out. The next step is my favorite step of all. You're going to want to take some coconut flakes and sprinkle it on top. And be generous of how much you sprinkle on top. I love this because it gives it this really good texture to the butter mochi. So you get the chewiness from the mochi, but then when you sprinkle a lot of coconut flakes on top and bake it, it gets toasted, so it gives this crunchy taste, and it just adds to the texture, and it just makes it like amazing. The very last step is to sprinkle some salt on top. Now do not skip this step, it is a very important step. So when you eat your butter mochi, you're going to get the sweetness from the butter mochi, but then you sprinkle a little salt on top, and then it's going to end with a really wonderful, subtle, salty taste. So you get like a really nice, sweet and salty butter mochi. At first, I didn't want to do it, but I actually really enjoyed it. We're going to bake this at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 30 minutes. And then we're going to reduce our temperature down to 325 degrees and bake for another 30 to 35 minutes until it is completely done, and it should look like. Let your butter mochi cool completely before you attempt to cut it. So I love this tip that was mentioned in Honeysuckle's video. They took this cutter, and then what I just did extra was sprinkle some of the cooking spray on top. And then you're going to use this. Just use this to cut the butter mochi. You can also use a regular knife, but then it gets hard and it gets sticky. So all I did was I just pressed it in and went across and cut the butter mochi. It is recommended that you wait until the next day for the butter mochi to set before you eat it, but who has the patience? Here's how it looks like the next day. The butter mochi has set, so it is just more solid and it is more chewy. But it's good either way. I hope you guys enjoy this video and enjoy your butter mochi.